raised it when I was speaking. Yeah.
So do I,
Do you want to cut it down at your
No,
title?
this is fine. I'm just,
Okay.
I want to just go to somewhere that I was, no, I'm fine. I
Okay.
just like, okay, so do I just say we're going to start? Or
It's up to you. What would you prefer?
Why don't we?
I'll just let everyone know we're going to be getting it. Thank you, everyone. We'll get started again. And I'll welcome Tina back to the podium to discuss some of your questions.
Okay, so thank you for the large number of questions and a very wide range of them, and I will try to get to as many as I can. On the question of examples of states' parties that have incorporated some of these rights, the one that I like to point to is not actually yet incorporated, but it's a bill that has been proposed in the Parliament of Peru by members of Parliament after a legislative drafting commission. And it's a civil code reform in a country that has a civil code that governs legal capacity. It is based very closely on the committee's guidelines, the Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, their guidelines in the general comment on Article 12, which in effect what they would be doing is saying every adult would have the right to legal capacity. It cannot be taken away from the person. Support can be offered to the person. If the person does not want that support, then their legal capacity has to be respected. And in the case where it is not possible to determine the person's will and preferences, only then can I believe it's a judge, take the initiative to create some kind of support for the person to exercise their legal capacity. So it's a, you know, there could be a whole 3-hour lecture on legal capacity, so I can't deal with that in depth. But this civil code reform that is being considered by the Parliament in Peru would really be the state of the art on legal capacity if it gets passed. Peru does not have a mental health law, and they actually had one for a very brief period of time. They had legislation for involuntary commitment in mental health and substance abuse services, and they repealed it. Civil society was really not happy with it. The CRPD committee recommended that it be repealed, and they did repeal it. So, as far as I understand now, the only way that people can actually get legally, involuntarily put into psychiatry is if they're under some form of guardianship or legal incapacitation, and they get put in that way. You know, Costa Rica and India are enacting reforms that go further than anything before. It's, you know, it's hard to describe. It can get very technical, but that may open the door to allowing people to litigate, to really have their full legal capacity in all situations, even if other people think they're making poor decisions. And I mean, that allows me to get into some of these other questions. So some of you were asking about anosognosia, lack of insight, and that sort of thing, and what happens when a person is in a state of mind where they really may be unaware of certain things going on around them, and they may be unaware of how certain things are affecting them. There have been good practices developed for people with Alzheimer's, for people for people experiencing what some of us call psychosis, for people experiencing any kind of unusual mental state where they might not be aware of consensual reality to the same degree as other people. I think the important thing is to think of it in terms of approaching the person with something that the person, that is actually useful and meaningful to the person. Not approaching the person as, I know what's better for you, you have to do such and such, I'm worried about you, therefore you have to do what I say. So the analogy that I sometimes think of is in terms of harm reduction. If a person is sleeping on the street because they prefer the street over government-run shelters that may be unsafe, or maybe the person has been traumatized in some kind of government shelter, or even in enclosed housing, and they simply prefer living on the street. Well, are you going to drag the person in somewhere they don't want to be? What about giving them a blanket and a tent to sleep in and bringing them hot food? Okay, that's offering the person something that's meaningful to them on terms that they probably, you know, if those things are acceptable, if that's what they want, they're going to accept it. And I think that the same principle, there's many very difficult situations, and my field is law and human rights, and I'm not somebody who's actively involved on a day-to-day basis in having these very difficult, intense interactions. Though of course it comes up in my life, though it comes up like it comes up in all of our lives, either for myself or for someone that I care about. We all have to learn how to do these things. But I do maintain that this is the way that it has to be, because what we have now is violent. It's creating a huge amount of harm to people. And why not just start by talking to why not just accept that you're not going to fix the person's life? The most that you can do is create some kind of human connection and, you know, offer something that the person might want. And if you're not, people do choose to die. And sometimes people choose to die because of the way they're being treated. I would choose to die rather than be put back in psychiatry again. And I know many of my friends and comrades who feel exactly the same way. You know? So I think we really have to be looking at, if we see the harms in one direction, we are obligated to see the harms in the other. Okay, we have some other questions in that vein. What if, what someone is raising, again, the question of the person being quote-unquote dangerous to themselves or others. Person's dangerous to themselves, I address that by saying, as I said, people may choose to die. We can't control somebody else's choice to die. We can offer them as much love and care and support and connection as we have to give. And that's what we can do for each other as human beings. And we can respect the person enough to honor them, not to go and say, yeah, go kill yourself, you know, not to say, I don't want to have anything to do with you. It's not to even say, well, yeah, you want to die? Okay. No. But to just honor that we're separate human beings and that it's painful and violent to go and, you know, to pull somebody. I mean, in an individual circumstance, there may be something where you're going to say, damn it, I love you and I'm not going to let you kill yourself, okay? But we're not going to have the state come and intervene and take you away to a place that you're going to be mistreated, that you're going to be treated violently, and pretend that that's something that we're actually doing that's of benefit to the person. Okay? The question of danger to others. If somebody, what do we mean by danger to others, right? Who gets to decide? If a person is imminently assaulting someone else, that's what we have law enforcement to deal with. So someone is asking, would we have more people in prison? I don't think we would have more people in prison unless the prison system was being, unless society and the state decided to use the prison and law enforcement to do the work that psychiatry is currently doing, which is illegitimate, which is simply a form of social repression and segregation of people whom many other people around them find inconvenient to be around. So do we want to change all of these institutions, to change anything related to mental health to be actual support that the person wants, and change law enforcement to be, to be fair, to create something more like restorative justice, okay? And I apologize, I'm trying to get to more of these questions. There's a question about preventive care in the sense of protection from bullying and abuse, and issues, proper and safe housing, and other basics that we can think of as related to the first tier of a hierarchy of needs. I think that's actually really important, because so many people get into the psychiatric system because they don't have housing, or because they're just one step away from some kind of a crisis in their life. A lot of what's called crisis in mental health is really a crisis going on in the person's life. And if we all started to understand and appreciate that, we would get away from this whole notion that there's a category of people that can be labeled mentally ill and have all kinds of other things done to them. So even these things like danger to self or others and lack of insight, if you really look at what's going on in a person's life, once you start having empathy with them and what they've actually experienced, has this person's mother thrown them out on the street? Has this person's neighbor done something awful to them? Was this person sexually abused? Has this person just been raped? What's going on in this person's life? Did she just lose her job? Did she just lose her home? Once you start looking at that, all of these ideas about schizophrenia, really either they don't matter so much or they just disappear when you're actually talking to the human being. So, people, whatever crises they experience, everybody essentially has the same human needs. How do we get the system to recognize our rational minds in a period of overwhelm, parentheses, psychosis? I think that's a wonderful and very lovely question, because I think many of us do experience ourselves when we're in a state of overwhelm. We know that we're still here. We know we're still reacting to what's going on around us. We're still making choices. We're still interacting with the world. Other people may not understand how we're interacting, but we're still there. And now the laws operate based on the assumption that we cease to exist when we're in some state of mind, or we appear to be in some state of mind that they're going to label in some way. But we know we're still there. And now the United Nations has also recognized we're still there. And in General Comment number 1, it says that people have legal capacity at all times, including in crisis situations. And that decision-making has to be respected. So I think that's actually maybe the best note to end on, and I really thank you for that question. I hope, if I didn't get to answer your questions, please feel free to contact me by email. I will send people the PowerPoint. If you would like to have a copy of it, you can contact me by email. I don't know if any of the organizers are in a position to do that as well, but I will, just give me some time so I can send them out to everybody all at once, but I will make them available. Thank you.